Greetings and welcome to the Heal and Restore podcast, where we are dedicated to helping couples and individuals strengthen their relationships through healing, growth, and honest conversation. We dive into topics like communication, forgiveness, intimacy, family, and emotional connection, because healthy love starts with a healed heart. Tune in each week and take the next step toward restoring what matters most. This week, we're going to be talking about the gift of grandparenting, leaving a legacy of love. And I'm your host, Randy. And of course, the hostess with the mostest sitting right here, my beautiful wife, Cathy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're here. So, yeah, I love this topic. I was kind of snooping through trying to come up with some ideas on what we could talk about. And grandparenting, I don't know why. It's summertime. It just seems like we see the grandkids more often. We're talking to them more often. Things slow down, sports and stuff. So, the gift of grandparenting and leaving a legacy of love is something that's near and dear to me. So, as grandparents, we play a very unique and powerful role in a child's life. We're not just babysitters, and I say we because we are grandparents to 5 amazing grandkids.
Yep.
We have 5 grandkids from ages 15 down to 5, 3 girls and 2 boys. And so we're not just babysitters. We are memory makers. We are wisdom sharers and love leavers. We leave that love in their heart. So whether you're just rocking grandbabies and you're just starting out as a grandparent, or you're cheering on the teens from afar, because we know that when they become teenagers, it's usually from afar, your role matters more than ever. So we want to talk about different ways we can stay connected through every season, because your presence as a grandparent is such a beautiful gift. And so I want to share a little bit, just before we start and go into what the segments are. I love talking about my experience as a child. So I was extremely close to my grandparents. This was on my dad's side. My dad was an only child. And my mom's side, my grandparents died when I was 6, and I never met my mom's mom. She died when my mom was young. So my connection to grandparents was on my dad's side, and I was extremely close to them growing up. Super looked up to him, my grandpa especially. He was my hero. But they would travel every summer after their retirement, and they would take me with them. So I have memories of traveling, and I used to get the map out, and I'd use my little thumb to calculate. My tip of my thumb to the crease was 100 miles on the map. So I would always do that. But yeah, I have such beautiful memories of traveling with my grandparents. And so it's just, those stories are things that stay with us forever. I'm almost 63, and those memories feel like I could put I got emotional thinking about it. I could put that video recorder in my mind and just play it out right then and there. So, grandparents, you matter. You matter a lot to your children, to your grandchildren, and your children, as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather and grandmother on my dad's side, even after he died, they were the light in my life. I didn't have grandparents on the other side, but my grandfather, he's from South Dakota, and the fishing and hunting. So he talked a lot about some of his childhood stories growing up, and taught me a lot about fishing, a lot about hunting. There's times we would just drive and talk the whole time.
Yeah.
My grandfather confided in me many times, because my dad died when my dad was only 32. So I was like a son, I guess. My grandfather confided a lot in me throughout his life. In fact, there was a time he was in the hospital, and he had a tumor, and they were going to have to operate on him. He asked for me to come. He was scared to death about the surgery. I've never seen my grandfather scared, but
so stoic.
He was so stoic, right?
Fear.
Yeah, but the fear was there, and I was there to help him through that process. So grandparents, in many ways, are a really important legacy for their grandchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will always remember my trips with my grandpa
And-
and our Sunday dinners, and we'll talk about that
Yeah.
with what we've created for ourselves. But
And I think part of the legacy with grandparents is that mom and dad are working.
Yeah.
They're busy making a life for their family, for the children, making a living to feed their children, making sure they have all the needs they want.
yeah,
Excuse me. And us as grandparents, a lot of us are either retired, semi-retired, so we have a lot more time on our hand
and patience.
and a lot more patience. Yeah, it's being a grandparent. I was told by somebody when we had our right before we had our first grandchild, it's going to change your life, Randy, in ways you never thought. And he was absolutely right.
Yeah, it didn't make sense then, but it sure does now.
It does now. So yeah.
It's awesome. So we're going to talk about a few different things in this episode. We're going to talk about what grandparenting. It's more than a title. What it means to truly be a grandparent.
Yep.
We're going to talk about building bonds that last.
Yep.
We're going to talk about leaving a legacy.
Yeah, that's important.
And then we're going to navigate. We're going to learn how to navigate challenges gracefully. I think when we're younger, that just comes to mind. When we're younger, I don't think we're real graceful in our challenges. How we navigate them. But as grandparents, it kind of it's the wisdom of our life that gets us to a place where we learn to navigate gracefully.
I think a lot of time when we're the parents, we're younger, and a lot of how we're parenting is learned behavior. But sometimes that learned behavior isn't always the best. So we're trying to learn. We're working on learning different methods that are more beneficial and more helpful to our children to become better human beings, better than us as well. I look at leadership and parents, grandparents. We're all leaders. Is I wanted my kids to be better than me. Yeah. And I want them to have a better life than I have.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So we learn to lead better.
Yeah, we learn to lead a lot better. As grandparents, we're even like, now we can really lead, right?
Right. So. Yeah, no, that's good. So let's talk about our first area here, which is more than a title, what it means to truly be a grandparent today. So, what we have to remember is as grandparents, we're that emotional anchor.
Yes.
We're those spiritual guides. We've had more years, we've had more experiences, and so we become that emotional anchor to our grandchildren. And the spiritual guides, that's something that, if you don't grow up in a home where there is any type of a spiritual guide, typically and it's funny that I just thought of this as I'm speaking this out loud. Mm-hmm. I had spiritual guides growing up as a grandchild, or as a grandchild with my grandparents. But some families don't, and even our family didn't for a long time. Right. But we have become that spiritual guide as we got older.
But remember that spiritual guidance isn't religious guidance.
No.
Right? Spiritual guidance for us is love, right?
That's good.
Acceptance, unconditional love. It's teaching our grandchildren everything about life.
Right.
The life we grew up in, the outdoors, everything there is to know about life.
Yeah, it's good.
So grandparents we play a huge part in being spiritual guides to our grandchildren. And of course, we want them to know about God, but Cathy and I are very much of the belief we're not going to ram it down their throats. Nope. Our actions are going to show them the love of Christ.
Basically leading by example.
We have to lead by example, right?
We want our grandchildren to feel safe that if they need something from a spiritual realm, whether it's prayer or just guidance, that they're going to feel safe to come to us. And we want to create that. Right. So the other thing I love too is how grandparenting has changed with the modern culture and technology of today. I can remember how technology worked back when I was a kid. I'd have to phone my grandparents from a phone that was attached to the wall. And technology has changed that. And so honestly, with the way technology is, there is no reason we can't participate in our grandchildren's life. There are so many ways to stay connected. And I remember when our daughter moved away to Hawaii for the first time, that was like our biggest, how are we going to stay connected? And that was before phones had FaceTime, to be honest with you. We used Skype.
Skype.
So we made every Sunday at a specific time of the evening for us our opportunity to Skype with our daughter and our granddaughters at the time. And so there's way more now. We've got FaceTime, we've got Zoom, we've got all kinds of means to be able to connect. And so we need to, as grandparents, we've had to learn to adjust to the ways that technology opportunities come to us.
I mean, I go back to, like you talk about, the phone on a wall or in a phone cabinet, right? And like my grandmother, she had a little salt timer, right? The little, what do you call them? I can't remember what you call them.
They're like an egg timer.
But it was the one where you guys, and it was a 3-minute timer. It had 3 minutes worth of sand. So when that salt made it all the way to the bottom, you had to get off the phone.
Your timer was up.
Your time was up, right? Or you like to say, you got that cord that was originally like maybe 4 foot. It extends to about 10 foot.
Yeah, because it gets stretched out.
Gets stretched out talking to your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever all the time. It's not like it was today.
No, but technology has upped its game to the point where there is no reason we can't participate in our grandchildren's life.
Right, in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. I mean, whether we agree or disagree with all the technology today, it does play that. I mean, to me, that's a valuable role, especially if you're on one side of the United States and your grandkids are on the other side of the United States, or even in another country. Right?
Yeah, as far
sometimes that's the only connection you can have.
Yeah. So make that connection.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I think that's important to remember is there is a difference between being present and being perfect.
Right.
And we have to be able, as grandparents, we're still teachers. We still have to be able. We have to let our grandchildren know we're still human. We haven't lived the life that we've lived without fault.
Right.
And so it's important that we are held accountable. We don't want our grandchildren to put us on such a pedestal that they think that we can do no wrong.
Right.
And so it's, being present is not being perfect.
No, and it's okay to apologize to your grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with making an apology when you felt like you have done something wrong or misguided them or said something maybe that wasn't quite true. It's okay to show your imperfection to them. It's okay to, hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that. Or, you know what? I don't know what I was thinking. I apologize for that.
I had to do that once with the oldest one, and I crushed her spirit, and that was not what I wanted.
Here's the other thing that I see Cathy do. And she did it, I think just last weekend or the weekend before. We had our grandkids over here. And they were outside playing in a little kiddie pool Cathy got. And our grandson did something while I wasn't out there, but she put him on a 5-minute timeout. But she also asked him, what did you do wrong? Why did I put you on the timeout? Yeah. So he understood what he had done. So, it's in there. It just wasn't you're on timeout because I'm mad. Mm-hmm. It was because you did something I asked you not to do.
Right.
So that's another critical thing. So,
we're still teachers.
We're still teachers, and we're working with the parents too. And I see my son do this. They give them a consequence. They tell them to stop, and then if they don't, there's a consequence, mm-hmm. and the kids know what the consequence is.
Yeah.
And so when my son says, "You go over there on the corner," they don't argue,
right?
Because they know that.
And we're going to talk about that and what it's like, watching your own children.
Yeah,
parent too. Yeah, because that's a whole nother area too. But yeah, the other thing that we want to talk about a little bit is how we can build bonds that last. I mean, I think that's really critical. And there's so many simple ways to connect meaningfully at every age.
Right.
I think the important part is know your grandchildren at whatever age they are. Know what makes them tick. Know what they love to do. Know what makes them laugh. Know what makes them sad. It's really about spending time with them and quality time with them so that you can build the bonds that last. Having 5 grandchildren from 15 to 5, they're all at different phases and stages and seasons in their life. And so having to connect to those and have that be a meaningful connection is how we build those bonds.
It's really important. And then, as you get to know them, this is a critical part, is that sometimes we have to push them just a little bit, but know the limit that you can push your grandchildren, right? And respect their wishes also. Remember, mom and dad, like all of our kids, right? They're great parents, right? And they're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. So Cathy and I do not have to intercede a lot, but also, when they're with us, we have to know when just to let them be, let them work things out themselves, and when they're going to need a little extra push or a little time out or whatever you want.
Right. So, in order to build that bond, you have to be observant to how the parents are parenting the children as well. Right. So it's really key. And the other thing I love too is the story time, storytelling, all those family traditions. I grew up with Sunday dinners being something that was such a key memory for me. Every Sunday we'd go to my grandparents' house, and every Sunday I sat right next to my grandpa. And every Sunday the rolls sat right in front of us. Those are little things that I remember growing up. And so based upon my experiences with that, we started doing that as well. Right. We would host Sunday dinners, and sometimes we tried to do it every Sunday, and then life is busy. Our kids and the grandkids, they're all busy in activities and stuff, and some days you just need to chill. But once a month at least, host a Sunday family dinner where you can just all come, and we'd sit around and watch baseball, or we'd swim in the pool. It's important to have.
And the one thing that I really want to encourage you as grandparents or parents of adult children is that we have to understand the busy lives that our children are in at this point in time. And so if we can't force them to come to an event if they can't make it. I mean, growing up, you got children, right? And those children might be involved in sports.
Yep.
And so now you're being a parent. If your child's involved in if your grandchild's involved in like club sports, man, that takes up a lot of time. And so don't take it personal.
No.
If they can't be there, because that's just going to drive them further away from you.
Yeah.
It's okay to be sad and not have them there, right?
No, that's good.
But it's like when they can get together with you, right?
Embrace it.
Embrace it. Embrace that moment, however that looks to you, right?
What were some of the things that you did as family traditions?
Well, a lot of it was like. Most of them I remember was on my grandmother's side, my grandma and grandpa, right? It was big family picnics with the Ritter Bushes and the Boyds, right? And they were always fun. I mean, I can't remember the name of the park. It was over by Jordan High School over in that area in Long Beach. We had huge picnics over there. And then a lot of times we'd have a big picnic in the back of my grandparents' backyard. Yeah. A big old magnolia tree.
At the swing.
The swing my grandfather built. We'd go up, see how high we could, kick on the tree. My grandfather, was the old, start the barbecue with chopped wood. He would literally chop the wood, start the barbecue hamburgers, homemade ice cream. We'd make ice cream. The parents a lot of times would be in my grandparents' kitchen playing marbles, a marble game, board game, I can't remember what it was called. And they'd be drinking their beer in a glass with salt on top of it. I remember that.
That must have been an old folks thing.
It must have been. But, there was never, this is the thing I loved about my father's side of the family, and there was never, to my remembrance, and I would know, any kind of heated, any kind of bad behavior, any kind of infighting going on.
Yeah.
I never saw that. The kids,
it was just all pure joy.
It was all pure joy. Where it's part of my story, but on the other side, of my mom's side of the family, my stepfather, it was nothing but darkness.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always a battle when we got together.
Yeah, that's good. Those memories, the good memories are the ones that stick.
Right.
The other thing that I love about creating bonds that last is sharing hobbies and wisdom.
Yeah.
I love some of the things that I see you doing when the boys are here, especially with Roland, because we see him more often. Right. But you guys are out in the garage. Sometimes they'll just disappear in the garage for a couple hours. I'll go out there, and Roland's 6. He's got his goggles on. He's got a saw. Papa's got them all set up, and he's just cutting wood.
He's cutting wood, man.
He's just sawing away.
Yeah, sawing away, and then I'll get him. I'll get him a couple nails and a hammer, and I'll even give him a little drill. He's old enough, I trust him with that. And he'll just start pounding. I mean, that's what I used to do with my grandfather. Yeah. We'd go out in the garage for hours, and he had my own little toolbox, and he had all these tools, and I would just he had a drill press, an old drill press, and I would sit there. I must have looked like a woodpecker when I got done with a piece of wood, man. Just drilling it full of holes.
The other thing that I love too, it made me think, is with the hobbies. I like to do crafts with the girls
Yeah,
too.
you do.
And I
Yes.
just thought of that. I thought,
Yeah.
I'll bring out my watercolors and we'll paint and we'll spend a couple hours doing that, or we'll create some other craft of some
Right.
sort. So it's just those small little things that create those memories. We do a lot of outdoor stuff.
Yeah, and to me, that's really, in my view, working in the garage with Roland, or if Maverick was here when he gets old enough, working in the garage with the kids, teaching them how to use their hands is really, really important. That's how I made my living, was with my hands. But also I think one of the most important traditions we can teach our kids is to love the outdoors.
Yeah.
We do a lot of hunting and fishing together, camping, hiking, and I'm watching my son, Garrett, and his daughter is now she's 10 years old, so she's going to be able to hunt this year. But watching my son with her in the field, she would always go with us scouting.
Yeah.
Right? Not always, but when she got to the age. And my son was so patient with her, teaching her everything, showing her stuff, showing her the tracks in the ground, showing her the different kinds of dung, the deer dung, the elk dung, all these different things that she was learning, and the beauty. Not only that, the beauty that you see in the outdoors, right?
Yeah.
And the ethics that are involved
Yeah.
in hunting and fishing.
You know,
it's just amazing to see.
With you saying that, it just reminds me of what a reflection you have been on our kids, that we can now as grandparents see our children doing
Yeah.
and replaying those
Right.
same things to their kids. And that's the beauty of a grandparent, is creating those bonds with them
Right.
that are handed down from generation to generation.
And to be honest with you, the short time I have with my dad here on earth, I was 12 when he died. He spent time with us either at the beach or camping and fishing.
Outdoors,
So I owe a lot to him and to my grandfather, who continued that tradition even after my father passed away. So, and my grandfather come from the old world, South Dakota. He had some great stories about his hunting adventures. So,
I bet.
it's just, we got to keep,
traditions, family traditions alive.
We got to keep the tradition of outdoors alive. We must. We cannot lose that.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that I think is important to build those lasting bonds is having one-on-one time, even if it's virtually.
Yeah.
For me, I'm the mammy here, so my big thing is those birthday times. Having those one-on-one moments. I think it was last year. All the girls had a shopping trip with me, so we spent the one-on-one times. But even throughout the year, we get opportunities with our children, our grandchildren that are here close to us. We'll have one-on-ones with them. We'll bring them over for a couple of days, one-on-one. Sometimes they're together, but a lot of times it's one-on-one. With our kids in California, there's been opportunities where, with Maverick especially, when he doesn't have anybody to watch him for the week or school's closed down, he'll come out here and we'll have one-on-one time. Right. So I think it's important that they're around you on the one-on-one time. There's less distraction and more memories that are made.
And that one-on-one time isn't always one-on-one, right? I mean, there's a lot of one-on-one, but like when Maverick comes out here, a lot of one time with me and you, but then also he gets to spend time with his cousins, which he really he loves them, right? That's just that family bond. Again, it's like the one-on-one time is, we're going to create a different type of family bond, that not that mom and dad are bad, but it's just a different type of family.
It enhances their life in huge ways. So, and then the final thing I think that's really valuable in creating those long-lasting bonds is when we as grandparents can encourage emotional security through consistency and affection. And we've had our challenges with some of our grandchildren with struggling with things that go on. I mean, divorce is not easy. Going into high school and junior high and high school is not easy, but you've been able to, over the years, really connect, especially with the older ones, when they're going through some emotional struggles themselves.
A lot of times my daughter will go, "Dad, can you go talk to the older one?" or even the younger granddaughter. And so I'll just get her. I go, "Hey, let's take a walk and let's just talk." So I'll just listen to what she has to say, and then I'll just give her some examples about life and how to work through them, and that, you're okay the way you think. See, I think too many times parents and grandparents, they're not okay with the way the children's thinking or how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to allow them to have those feelings and to think the way they're thinking, but we can also give them a different perception without demeaning them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it, as I can remember my grandson out here, my son's son out here, at baseball, a couple of times he'd come up, Dad or Grandpa, these guys are doing this, that. I go, no, wait a minute, bud. Look at everybody's learning this game just like you are.
Yeah.
You're fortunate enough that where your dad spends a lot of time with you, right? And so you also got some leadership skills, but in order to be a good leader, you have to be part of the team and you have to pick those guys up. Don't let what they're saying, don't let what they're doing change the way you work your game.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's really good.
So there's just all these little tiny, they're nothing major.
No.
I think that's the thing. It's nothing big.
No,
right?
but I think what's important is, like, for example, using the example of our oldest granddaughter, when she was struggling, you'd have those conversations with her. And then it got to the point where, do you need to talk to Papa? And she would say, no, no, no. But I think today, if she needs to talk to Papa, she knows you're her safe space.
I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah, it's creating that consistency and affection. Even though, for a period of time, she may not want to talk with him, she knows that you're her safe space.
And I have to honor that when she, I know what she's going through.
Yeah.
Her mom tells me, so it's like, hey, do you want to go have a talk? No, I'm okay, Papa. She says, okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's a safe space. I'm not going to force her to talk when she doesn't want to talk.
No, absolutely. No, not necessary. And then the other thing that this next segment that I love is leaving a legacy. I mean, gosh, I just think of the short legacy that my mom had on me and just that little bit with our kids.
Yeah.
But, what does legacy really mean? I mean, there's so much to it. There's love, there's character, there's faith. That family culture is created in our legacy.
I was thinking about my legacy, right? And then I thought, this just came in my head right now. It's like, thank God for my father, the short time I had with him, my grandmother, my grandfather, because their legacy was bestowed on me in a very positive way. But there was a period of time, like for 38 years, what was the other legacy I was carrying around? All that trauma that I had, right? Because my mother and my stepfather, they created a lot of trauma damage in my life. And so I was carrying that legacy throughout, over half my life.
Until you changed that.
Until I changed it. But the reason I say it is because Dad and my grandparents, that was the light that was instilled in me. That's why I always said
you hung on to that.
Yeah, that light, what hadn't been instilled in me as a young child, the years I had with Dad before he died, and my grandparents being there for me, I don't even know if I'd be here today.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's true. That's really true.
I really don't. So
so the legacy does matter.
Yes.
And other things you can do to leave a legacy is there's writing of letters, recording stories. Recording stories. It's funny because when we were doing our little research on this, I went back to the old recording reels, like where we used to have what were those called? Where you put the reels in? It's like a movie theater. Like we'd have a movie theater player. And that's
VHS?
No, even before that.
The 8mm films.
The 8mm films.
Yeah.
For me, that was how I could see our legacy before me. Now we have the advantage of smartphones, where we can record photos and videos and create memory boxes and things like that for our children. So think about, what kind of a legacy would you as a grandparent want to leave for your grandchildren?
Right, exactly.
And I know that you were so good at this. There was a book we got about writing to your grandchildren, and you filled every page of that thing out. Mine's still about halfway done. I'm a good starter of everything and a poor finisher of a lot. But, just things like that, where you can write letters or create videos and things like that can help leave a legacy.
And there's times, and I just pray that, we've done the right thing and our grandkids will be good, but there's times where you can do everything right, and something goes south in our grandchildren. There's a plethora of reasons that it could go back. But it's during those times that we need to be there for them, whether they want our support or not at that point. But they just need to know that, hey, I love you unconditionally, regardless of where you're at.
Right.
And I just want you to have a good life.
Yeah.
We're here for you when you're ready.
Yeah.
right? Never abandon your children.
No.
There's no conditions attached to
And
love.
it really comes down to live by example.
Exactly.
Being a living example
Right.
of that.
Right.
And so what values do your grandkids see in you? You know,
Yeah.
there's the importance of family and spending time together.
Yep.
That's one of them.
Right.
That's huge for me.
Yeah.
Creating memories and spending time outdoors, which you've
Right.
talked about. I mean, that is a huge value for us,
Yeah.
which includes,
camping, fishing,
Yeah.
hunting, hiking, bird watching, stargazing,
Yeah.
right? All those things.
Yeah. You know, and just wisdom and life experiences, you know, showing unconditional love and stability
Yeah.
for them. Those are things that we have to live by example.
Yeah.
And so if you're not doing that now, I would encourage you, think about the value you want to leave for your grandkids and then start living by that value.
And so, sadly, this is the truth. So much of this has gone by the wayside because of the way the world is today. Right?
We need to get back to traditional
things. We need to get back to traditional. Just because everything's going sideways compared to, like, especially when Kathy and I grew up and all that, doesn't mean it has to stay that way in your family. Yeah, you might be going upriver against the grain, but you can still start. It's just one person at a time, right?
One moment at a time.
One moment
Break it
at
down,
a time. Be that pebble in the water, right? Because when we drop that pebble in the water, we have no idea how far outreaching it's going to be in our grandparents and our children's life, right?
Yeah, well, that's good.
For those years that I was, running a gun at my addiction, I all but destroyed my family. But I tell you what, my kids, they love me and they honor me
because
today.
you made a shift.
I made a big shift, and what they did is they watched Dad fight for his life again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for them.
Yeah.
And for them.
And for our grandchildren, because our grandchildren have never seen your old behavior.
No, never seen me drink.
No. And then the final segment we want to talk about is how we can navigate challenges gracefully. Life has multiple challenges. So a couple things that come to mind is, like, when our adult children parent differently than we did, how do we support them?
Yeah.
How do we not overstep? Just because we did it one way doesn't mean it was always the right way. And so I've learned for myself is I will make suggestions. And typically my daughter is really good at gently knocking it down. And that is a reminder that it's not my place.
No,
but there are other times when I make suggestions. She goes, well, I'll have to try that. So I have to be open to, be willing to be open to that, but also be willing to say that, you know what, she may not like this and that's okay too. Or they may not agree and that's okay too.
We have to believe that we've instilled enough wisdom and goodness in our children to know they're going to raise their children. And our goal is to raise them better than they were raised. Not that we did a bad job, right? But it's even like with Garrett, Garrett and Naomi, right? I don't say nothing. I mean, I look at them and some of the things are like, but you know what?
Not my place.
They're not my place. But here's what's really, really important. All of our grandchildren are very, very happy with where they live and with their mom and dad. And it shows in everything that they do.
Yeah, we have to look at the big picture.
Yeah,
we can't look at the small things that are causing turmoil or that we might get frustrated with.
Right, but there has been times, especially when our daughter has come to me and for you, because for advice, right?
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's been some pretty good stuff. We talk to them in a loving way. We don't tell them what they should do.
No.
We tell them, just give them, well, you might think about this, or, maybe it's time to do this. But ultimately, the decision is up to them. And in fact, my daughter one time, she called me up after taking some steps that we talked about. And she goes, Dad, I can't do this no more. I've done everything that we talked about, and it's not working. I said, then, you know what, sis, do what you believe you got to do at this point in time. Because
we've just got to be there and support them in all their decisions.
Right.
There's no question about that. But
and here's the other thing too, real quick. If you're a grandparent that doesn't know how to grandparent, there's plenty of parents out there that don't know how to parent, right? And that's not their fault. You can change.
Yeah.
You can make the change. It's a choice solely a choice that is in your hands.
Right.
Are you going to choose to stay mean and ugly, so to speak? I'm not saying you're all that way. or are you going to choose to start being more understanding,
Right.
loving, kind, care, compassionate?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can change.
Yeah, we have to make a change one step at a time.
Right.
The other challenge, I think that can be a challenge that's hard to navigate. Grandparenting through divorce, grief, and even long distance. Now, we have had to grandparent through divorce, and initially we're hurt, we're angry, we're bitter, and it has taken some time for you. I'm a little more. I tend to get there a little quicker, but we've had to learn that it's not always easy, but it is necessary to keep that communication open with your grandchildren about their other parents.
Well, it's always been easy for me with my grandchildren.
Right.
I've never talked bad
No.
No. That's not it.
But it's the fact that our child went through a divorce is hard.
Right.
That part was difficult. That's where the hurt comes from.
I was told things about him that were like over the top for me.
But that's what I'm saying. We can't carry that hurt into our relationship with our grandchildren.
Nope, not at all.
And so we want to make sure that we're staying connected. I have always been able to ask the girls, "Hey, did you have fun with your dad?
Exactly.
What did you guys do?" Not that I'm trying to pry into anything. No. I just want them to know that I'm invested in that relationship with them. Yeah. And I think that's important. Yeah. Long distance can be challenging. Our daughter and son-in-law and kids, they live 3.5 hours away from us. It's not all that far, but it is far enough. So we have to navigate. We've learned to navigate through, my daughter and I talk every day, so that helps. And I talk to my grandchildren at least once or twice throughout the week. The girls are older now where they have phones, so I'll send them a text message every now and then. So, we just have to learn to navigate some of these hard things with grace.
Yeah, and I think, our oldest granddaughter went through some stuff, and I think it was because of the unconditional love and grace that her mom and both you and I and her stepdad, who's a phenomenal stepdad, showed her through that tough time.
Yeah, we loved her through the hard stuff.
And all of a sudden a switch went on. It's like, wow, look at her go now, right? Yeah. So we just can never give up on our grandkids. Never.
No, and the final thing here in navigating difficult challenges is making sure that we're encouraging without controlling. We have to trust our influence, but we have to do it with love.
Right.
And that's the key point here. So,
and I can tell you this: there's nothing more rewarding, right? And I know Cathy feels the same way, as when you walk into your grandkids' home, and they come running at you, and sometimes a little too fast, but they come running at you with their arms wide open and give you a jump. For the case of the small ones, jump up in my arms and give you a big love, right? There's nothing more rewarding to that.
I think that when you talk about that, walking into their home, even with technology, what it is, I get excited when the older grandchildren want to share something that's happened at school an award or an achievement.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are huge. And so that's just a reminder that as a grandparent, staying connected, showing them value, creating these memories for them, that hits my heart.
That support, I for some reason, I think that's almost as important, maybe not even a little more important than their parents' support. Because all of our grandkids have got awards in school, and our oldest granddaughter got some outstanding awards this year. That just
through her ROTC.
Through ROTC,
yeah, it's been amazing.
It's been amazing. So they like to come up, they like to brag about that.
Yeah, and we're ready. We're ready to take it.
Let's go.
Taking it. So as we close out, we'd like to leave you with this encouraging word. And what it is your love, your words, and your presence matter more than you know. Just remember that. So if you're a grandparent and you have some legacy moments or you have some fun grandparenting stories, we would love to hear from them. You can email us and share your experience at our email at healandrestorecounseling@gmail.com. Just drop us a quick email. Share a legacy moment with us. Share a story that brought joy to your life, because we all need to hear and read these stories. So you can do that. And as we close out the episode, we always want to close out just sharing a little bit about our books that are available on Amazon. So Randy, I know that this is your
Yeah.
This is your work
Yeah,
right here.
yeah.
So why don't you share what is available to them?
So we got healing the wounded child within, right? It's healing from the pain of abuse is the subtitle on that. We got how to heal and restore your marriage, a 4-step process to restore the most important relationship,
Your marriage.
your marriage, right? And look, if my marriage is good, but hey, every marriage can use a little help. And this book is real simple.
We can all use a little help from our friends.
Yeah, right. We also got renewing bonds, 7 steps to restoring your relationship, hearts reunited, steps to restore love and intimacy in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 30-day devotion on the wholeness, which I'm finding out people are really getting a lot out of that little 30-day thing. And I just released my book a couple of weeks ago, The Healing Path, The Survivor's Guide to Healing from Abuse. They're all available on Amazon, several different platforms, and several different, I don't know what to call them, paperback, Kindle, and Audible.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or you can get them at our website.
You get our website too.
At healandrestorecounseling.com.
And they're only available in paperback.
Yeah.
But they're there.
Yeah, so check that out. I also just want to close this out reminding everybody that we do have our 1-hour no-cost discovery session. And this is your opportunity where we get to hear from you, what you're looking for on your journey of health back to wholeness. And we'll be able to share a little bit about our story too.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we connect with you. And we have found this to be a key component in building a relationship of trust on your journey. So check that out also at our website at healandrestorecounseling.com. You can sign up for your free, no cost. I say free, no cost. Doesn't cost you a darn penny.
All right.
Other than your time, 1-hour discovery session. And we would love to hear from you on that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I love grandparenting.
Oh, yeah, it's a wonderful joy. Wonderful joy.
Yeah.
So
So
is that it, Mrs.
That
Boyd?
is it.
You get it all covered.
We got it.
All right. So remember this. If nobody tells you they love you, Randy does.
Cathy does.
More importantly, God does. Bless everybody. We'll see you next week.
Be blessed.